Hello everyone, my name is Itlalia Stephanie Ambris and my major is Bilingual Education, EC through 6. What do you remember the most about learning science in elementary or middle school? The most I remember about learning science in elementary or middle school would be, elementary for the most part. We always had really hands-on activities and fun activities that made all of my classmates excited when we would head over to the lab. And in middle school, it started to get a bit more difficult, but it was still the same as fun and exciting as it was in elementary. How do you feel about science? How have your feelings changed over time? I've always liked science and I've always done really good in that subject area, and my feelings haven't changed over time. They've stayed the same. How do you think your school science experiences impacted your attitude towards science? Like I said, I've had really fun activities, and I think that has led me up to today. Like I said, I really enjoy science. I've always had, and I've always done pretty well in that subject area. How do you think your school science experiences impacted your understanding of science? Like I said, it all depended on the projects that we had, the activities, and my teachers also helped a lot. They made science really fun for me and my whole class, and I think that developed my understanding of science really well. What experiences made it easier or harder for you to learn science? Like I said, experiences. I've had really good teachers, and the experiments that we've worked on have been really fun and interesting. What did your teachers do or not do to connect science with your home, cultural, community experiences? Well, my teachers were always encouraging us to go outside and do hands-on activities, because everything was basically science. I mean, you could go outside and play, and you'll still be doing science. My community as well has always been opening. There was parks. I come from Los Fresnos, so there's around 3 parks, I believe, now, and they're always available for anyone to enjoy. How was your science learning supported at home and in your community? In home, my parents have always been very supportive of my education, even though they didn't have a lot of education themselves. They've always been interested in what I have to say or teach them. I remember once that we did this activity in 8th grade, I believe, which was consisted of making slime. So I was really excited about it, and I went home and told my mom, "Oh, I did this today, we should try it." And my mom's like, "Okay, sure, let's try it." So we went to the store and bought the ingredients, which was glue and water and borax soap. And we got home and we actually did the experiment, and we had a blast, and we did that like every time I was bored. So yeah. Did your parents or other family members engage in activities involving science? Like I said, yes, we have. Do you do any activities that involved or applied science outside of school? Sports, hobbies, or games? I believe that there's a lot of science around For example, I like baking a lot, and that requires to know measurements and the type of reactions that baking powder and yeast are going to have on the dessert you're trying to make. If you received science instruction in a language other than your home language, what was your experience like? I never received science in other by the time I received science instructions, I already knew English, and I've had a fairly well experience. I haven't struggled. What did your teachers do or not do to support your learning? Like I said, I've had very, very encouraging, fun teachers that made the process of learning science super fun, and they've been great. In what ways were you alike or different from the other students in your science classes? Well, I was mostly alike since I've studied my whole life here in the Valley. Most of us are Hispanics, and we basically have or understand the same language, and we also have the same culture for the most part. So the same traditions, we have a lot of things in common. There's not much that differences me from my classmates. Consider science backgrounds, ethnicities, race, gender. Like I said, we all had the same culture. How do you think your experiences, feelings, and beliefs might impact the kind of science teacher that you will be, or the kind of teacher that you will want to be? I've had, like I said, really great professors and teachers throughout my education, and I want to be that type of teacher myself. I want my kids to have fun, to make learning fun, so they can like the subject and have a bit more easier, so it can be more easier for them to understand. Do you remember any memory from your science teacher that made you interested or hated on science? One of my favorite teachers would be in 8th grade. I went to Resaca Middle School, and my teacher's name was Mr. Garza, but everybody would call him Mr. G. He was extremely funny, and he made this home-like environment in the classroom. He knew everybody's name, and if you didn't know your name, he gave you a nickname, which made the class super funny, and everybody really enjoyed his classes, and his experiments were always really, really fun. And I've never had a teacher that has made me hate science. Do you remember hearing anything from your parents or teachers about relationship between science and religion? Not really. My parents don't really get involved in that. We really don't have a religion to follow, and in my schools there have always been teachers can't touch on that subject, on religion. So if they're there to teach science, they're there to teach science and nothing else. Do you remember any memory from your science teacher to make science more accessible to ESL students? Not really. I never really had like an ESL classmate, or that at least I was aware of. I would have to say that would be more here in the university, because there is some people that still don't know a lot of English, or the professor themselves don't speak English very well. They have a really heavy accent or something like that. They're always available through email. They stay behind. They ask if you have any questions and respond right then and there. Are there any elements in your culture that can be considered as a barrier to learn science or pursue a career in science? Like I said, in my culture, I'm Hispanic, and there's not really a barrier that has ever stopped me or made me think twice about learning science. Are there any elements in your culture that can be considered as a benefit to learn science or pursue a career in science? I would say, of course. I mean, there's always a benefit in learning something new. Especially for us Hispanics, most people are not really that informed or not that optimistic to learn something as a subject like science. So it's always fun and interesting to learn new things. And how are you going to use your culture to support your future students? Well, my culture, there's a lot of things in my culture that I can use. But I'm always going to be there for my students, and especially if they have trouble with English and don't know a word of English, because that's how I started in kindergarten. I didn't know a word of English, and it was hard. I would be understandable, and we can always use connections through our culture if we have the same culture. We can use our culture to create a home-like environment bond between me and my students and the classmates. And I believe that is all. Thank you all for your time.